What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. Now I'm quite excited for this one. In my opinion, the Alfa Romeo 4C is one of the cheapest ways to get into a relatively new car, which is exciting and might even go up in value. It's just like a baby Ferrari. Moreover, one of the first videos on this channel which got a decent number of views was a depreciation analysis of the Alfa Romeo 4C. In this video I will then also give you an update on the 4C market, and this will tell you if values are falling, stable or perhaps going up. But without further ado, let's dive into the data because the market changed a lot. We start with today's market. You can see that we have the model year on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. You can also see that each car is displayed by a bubble. Now then, the 4C market is very small. There are only 23 cars for sale, and out of these there's only one launch edition. And this is at the same time also the only coupe for sale. Moreover, there are only 3 coupes for sale, and these are the cars from 2015, 2016 and 2018. All the cars for model year 2020 are new cars. And you can see that for these new cars there is quite a large price variation. Prices start at $70,000 but go up to $90,000. But the thing which really surprised me here was the few number of used cars which are for sale. And that of course doesn't help in this analysis. Now you can also see then that the price difference between the used and the new cars is very large. Hence, even though that the prices for the new 4Cs went up slightly during the years, the 4C is not immune to depreciation. Nevertheless, let's have a look at how the market changed in the last year. And we will first have a look at the shift in the price and the mileage distribution, and then look at more detailed market breakdowns. Now if we start with the price distributions, then you can see that we have today's market over here and the market 1 year ago over here. And as you can see, the distribution for today's market lays for a large part on the right hand side of last year's market. And this of course means that prices went up. In fact, the median price went up with $12,000 from $64,000 to $77,000. However, if you think back to the previous graph which I showed you, then you can probably figure out that this price increase is not a real representation of the change in prices. Let's go back so I can show you why. You can see that we are again looking at the model year versus price relationship, but that we have now 2 market dates included. And when I first looked at this graph, I really thought I made an error here. 1 year ago there were namely 86 cars for sale. 86 cars! And out of these 86, 37 were used cars. So think about that. The used car market shrunk from 37 cars to 3 cars. Now if you search very hard on the internet you can find a few more, but not many. And this of course means that 4C owners are not selling their cars. The number of 4Cs which were sold to the US is quite small, but nevertheless, the number of used cars for sale in today's market is insanely small. And unfortunately for us, this also means that it is very difficult to track the value over time. After all, because there are so few cars for sale, we can't say that used cars from, let's say 2016, went up or down in price. For that we need to have a look at the mileage to price relationship. But before we do that, let's first have a closer look at this graph. We can namely see that the median price for the new cars hardly changed. This was $72,000 and is now $78,000. But this increase is mainly caused by this group of cars, which has a very high spec. Now if we look a bit further, then we can also see that in principle 4Cs depreciate. You can see that 2015 cars were around $30,000 cheaper than new cars. In fact, if we only look at last year's market, and clean the depreciation curve so that we have only new cars in 2019 and used cars in the other model years, then we can see that the average depreciation per year is $7.4 thousand or 10% per year. But as you can see from the shape of the curve, this is an average value. The first year loss is of course a lot larger with $16.8 thousand or 22% of the average new price. The drop in the 4th year of ownership was then of course a lot lower with $3.5 thousand or 7% of the car's value. But note that these numbers are a bit of an overestimation due to the changes in the MSRP price. Now then, what would be interesting to see is of course how the prices for the older cars developed. After all, based on the depreciation curve of last year's market, it seemed that those are bottomed out. But unfortunately, as you just saw, the number of data points is very limited, so it's not possible to draw any conclusions on that. And with that in mind, let's move on to the mileage versus price relationship graph as that might give us some more insights. You can see that we have now the mileage on the horizontal axis instead of the price, and that only the used cars are included. Now if we start with the market 1 year ago, then we can see that the average depreciation per 1,000 miles was $629 or 1%. But just as with the depreciation per year, you can see that this is an average number. It's much higher in the first 2,000 miles and then flattens. Especially after 15,000 miles there seems to be hardly any effect of the mileage on the price. But now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the blue line. This shows the curve for today's market, and as you probably know, a curve based on 3 data points can't be trusted. That is then also the reason why the blue shaded area is so large. This area namely shows the price uncertainty. But instead of focusing on what we can't do with this data, let's focus on what we can do. So we have 3 used cars for sale in today's market, and we can see that for each of those they are priced far above the ones 4 years ago. Let's look at the first car. This car has a price of $60,000 and a mileage of 2,700 miles. 1 year ago, cars with this mileage were priced around $55,000. So that means that the current car is catching a premium of $5,000. If we look then at the second car, then we can see that this car has 22,000 miles and that it is priced at $49,000. And last year there were not so many cars for sale in this mileage area. 1 launch edition and 1 normal car. And they were both priced quite far below the current one. It is even so that the current car is priced above this one over here with a mileage of 17,000 miles. That car was namely put up for sale at $49,000. And I would say that back then, that car was priced out of the market. Now then, finally, let's have a look at the third used car for sale. This is a launch edition with 56,000 miles. And based on the other 2 data points, the price of $45,000 doesn't seem so strange. However, if we compare it to last year's prices, then we can see that it is priced in the range of cars which had between 10 and 20,000 miles. So even though that we can't make a direct comparison for this car, I would say that also the high mileage cars went up in value. So looking at these 3 data points, which naturally give a very limited view, I would say that we can conclude that prices went up. Yet, if you are a regular viewer of this channel, then you know that I'm not really satisfied with these results. After all, 3 data points, it's a bit sketchy to draw any conclusions based on that. And that is exactly why we will continue now by having a look at the auction results from Bring a Trailer. But before we do so, if you like this video, please support this channel by smashing that like button. Also don't forget that you can request a depreciation analysis by commenting the name of the car for which you would like to see the analysis down below in the comment section. If you then subscribe and click on the notification bell, you will get notified when your requested analysis goes live. Now then, the auction results from Bring a Trailer. You can see that we have now the time on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. And you can see immediately that something happened in this market. Basically from 2018 till the beginning of 2020, 4Cs were dropping slightly. However, when the pandemic really kicked in, prices went up. And when you look at the mileages of these cars, then it is clear that this price increase is not because all the cars on the right hand side have a lower mileage than the ones on the left hand side. Over here we have, for example, a launch edition with 7,000 miles, which went for $45,250, while this car with 8,000 miles went for $54,000. Some cars even sold for extremely high prices, like this one here with 1,200 miles and the one over here with 2,000 miles. Now if I put this graph from Bring a Trailer next to the graph which shows the market 1 year ago, we can see even better that prices went up. 1 year ago, only the cars with less than 5,000 miles were priced over $50,000. And this is slightly different in today's market. For example, this car over here, which had a mileage of 8,000 miles, sold for more than $50,000. Now if we look then at the cars which have an even higher mileage, like let's say this one which has done 16,000 miles, then we can see that it sold for $48,000. And also this is at the very top of last year's price range. And on that note, let's wrap up and conclude. The Alfa Romeo 4C. Right from the start, everyone said that this will be a future classic. However, I think that exactly because everyone was saying this, prices didn't hold. In fact, the new cars lost quite a bit. Nevertheless, since last year we can see that the market is turning and that values are rising, and perhaps rightfully so. Now a reason for this can of course be the decrease in production. I believe that Alfa Romeo announced already numerous times that 4C production will be stopped. But as of today, I think that it's still possible to order a Spider. Another reason for the price increase can of course be the strong used car market. The 4C market is namely not the only market where values remain strong. Yet the value increase is carried across the market, and also in Europe it is possible to see large price increases. One of the reasons that my earlier videos included a few about the 4C is then also that I was interested in the 4C at the time and was following the market quite closely. Now I don't have any data about this, but I remember that in Germany prices started at 50,000 euros and that the market supply was large. And oh boy, did things change. At the moment there are only 18 cars for sale in Germany and prices start at 65,000 euros. And with that we arrived at the end of the video. Now if you enjoyed this video, please remember to support the channel by smashing that like button. As always, a huge thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new analysis.